Welcome back to Donington, everyone, and your next instalment of Ginetta racing action from the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. After an entertaining Ginetta GT Championship race earlier on, we now move on to the Ginetta GT Academy for their 6th round of the championship and their first of 3 20-minute races here this weekend. It was a pretty competitive qualifying session, pole position decided by only half a tenth of a second, and a championship that is not exactly on a knife edge, certainly within the GTA class, but pretty competitive within the rookie class, where Harry Gamble and James Nicholas are separated by only 13 points. Julian Wantling's got a 30-point advantage over Mark Ellman in the GTA Championship itself, but the results of the 3 races this weekend could well see that championship story get a little bit closer. Just waiting for 1 or 2 cars to arrive on the grid ahead of the green flag lap then, and then 20 minutes of racing around a warm and dry Donington Park will be upon us. And as you can see there, it's car number 21, Luke Shaw, who snatched the pole position earlier on this morning from James Nicholas. James Nicholas, who is second in the rookie class championship, second behind Harry Gamble. But Harry Gamble didn't have a great qualifying effort this morning, only 6th. Now, 6th is not a disaster by any stretch of the imagination. He was still within 8/10 of a second of pole, but that's a sign really of how close this championship is these days. You don't need to slip by much, and you can find yourself several rows further down on the grid than you should be, and that can make your life a little bit more tricky over the course of the races. So good opportunity here for James Nicholas, still in, remember, his first ever season of car racing, to try and close that points deficit that he's got to Harry Gamble in the championship. Green flag lap then gets underway. The cars make their way around Redgate Corner, and within the next couple of minutes we will have our 6th round of the championship underway. It started with 3 races at Alton Park, all of them won within the GTA class by Julian Wantling, but it's been really the rookies to the fore all season long so far, and at Alton Park it was a win for James Nicholas in his first ever race in a car. Well, he starts this one from the front row of the grid with Luke Shaw on pole position. Mike Taylor and Thomas Balfe are next on row number 2, and then the 3rd row, the first non-rookie, Amy Tomlinson, with a good effort there in qualifying, and Harry Gamble, the points leader in the rookie class, starting from 6th. Mark Ellman and Gareth Thomas, GTA and rookie class driver respectively, together on row 4, and then the top 10 completed by Julian Wantling. So Julian also a little bit further down than you'd expect to see him, 3rd of the GTA drivers. He's got Emma Tomlinson for company on row 5. 6th row, Jamie Cordell and Peter Thompson together, a pair of rookies on row 6. Row 7, Charlotte Lowe and Ali Juffali. And the 8th row is shared by Paul Thomas and 3rd of the Tomlinsons, Lucie Tomlinson 16th, and then the back row of the grid is where you find Lucie Hodgson, all on her own on row 9. So yeah, interesting qualifying session then. Both of our respective championship leaders struggling by their usually high standards, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not they can bounce back in the race and undo some of the damage done this morning. Remember, like in the GT Championship, you score points within your class. You also score bonus points for things like fastest laps in the race and for fastest laps in qualifying. So already we have had a bonus point scored by Luke Shaw for being the first of the rookies on the grid, and a point scored by Amy Tomlinson for the best, being the best of the non-rookies in that qualifying session, 5th place on the grid. So out of the Melbourne hairpin they head then. Again, a rolling start, new for 2024 in the Ginetta GT Academy Championship. The Ginetta G56 safety car will pull into the pit lane, and then we'll be good to go here at Donington then. The inside line, in theory, the advantageous place to be, and that is the line held by Luke Shaw as we head to the rolling start. Can James Nicholas find a way through, though, and maximise this opportunity to score some good points? Let's find out then. Toward Redgate they head, 2x2 formation. They stayed in for a little while until someone breaks ranks up the inside. That is Julian Wantling. Oh, contact James Nicholas. James Nicholas has been elbowed out wide, and a spin for, is that Gamble? It's Gamble, the top 2 in the championship, both in trouble at the first corner. Gamble's in the gravel, Emma Tomlinson and Julian Wantling. Julian Wantling, the GTA Championship leader, also in the gravel trap. It has all gone wrong at Redgate. That is Nicholas, I think, off with damage. Would you believe it? 3 of our championship contenders across the various classes are off the road and out of the race in the early stages. Absolute carnage at Redgate Corner, and that surely is going to need a safety car to get it all cleared up. We've got a few of the a few of the survivors making their way towards Coppice Corner, where a red flag is thrown, and that is the reason why. There's a Ginetta car park at Redgate Corner. Julian Wantling with a damaged car is getting going. That's Mark Ellman, I think, getting dug out of the gravel. Yes, it was, number 88. So actually, only the 2 cars stuck, Emma Tomlinson and to the left, Harry Gamble. But I would be very interested to see that again and figure out what happened. There were 2 separate bits of contact. There was the one between, I can only imagine, Mike Taylor and James Nicholas that saw Nicholas elbowed out wide and damaged his steering or suspension. There is James Nicholas. Look, he's stationary down at the bottom of the Craner curves. He's not going to make the restart, unfortunately. The damage is to the other side of the car. We can't see the damage, really. It's on the right-hand side. And there is Gamble. There is Gamble. So that's significant. Harry Gamble got going again. And it's my understanding he'll be able to take the restart. So that could be significant in the championship. He's shedding gravel all over the track as he makes his way back. But with a full race restart to come, it will be minus James Nicholas. But we should have Harry Gamble on the grid. And that could be important. So... well, oh well, that was a very dramatic start to the race, and it all kicked off into Redgate. I just made the point that they were very neat and tidy, 2 by 2 into the corner, and then it all went wrong, really, as we arrived at the apex. Emma Tomlinson, I think, is now the only driver still stuck in the gravel. But if nothing else, we need this red flag just to clear the track. Look at the state of the track on the exit of Redgate Corner, all that gravel that's been strewn across the road. The live snatch vehicle is in place to remove Emma Tomlinson's car from the gravel. I don't think she'll be able to take the restart because she's requiring outside assistance to get going again. That's normally the rule. But there, Harry Gamble, look, his car, again, seemingly undamaged, really. Maybe the right-hand side of the car might be a little bit worse for wear. That number 23 car. In fact, I wonder whether we can see that. Well, let's piece together what happened first. So let's first focus on what happens to Harry Gamble. And he's a bit further back. He's the 3rd row of the grid, car number 23. So he's the white car just behind the sort of orange and blue of Balfe. So he peeks to the outside line, Harry Gamble. Somebody, somewhere, is going to get into him. And it is, I think Ellman spins. I think Mark Ellman spun on the inside, the sort of green and orange car. He was just starting to rotate. In fact, this will tell us because this is Mark Ellman's view. And I think Mark is going to get tapped into a spin here and unfortunately had no way to avoid spinning into Gamble. Let's listen. Yep, there's the hit. And there's the other hit as he gets into Gamble. So Gamble was the innocent victim, but actually Ellman didn't really do anything wrong. He got punted, and you could see there what he thought. Now, this is James Nicholas's view. Remember, he started 2nd on the grid. There goes the pole sitter Luke Shaw holding the lead, but at the inside, I think, comes Mike Taylor there, and a big bang. Nicholas gets elbowed out wide, and I think that has broken either the right front suspension or the steering arm, because then when we get down through the Craner curves, you can see he also is gesticulating at a driver who has long since gone up the road. We're going to turn left into the Craners, and nothing happens. Straight on he goes. It could be a puncture, but I think more likely broken steering, and James Nicholas actually did well to get the car slowed down before he made contact with the barriers. So that's what happened. So Ellman got tapped by somebody. I mean, I couldn't spot who it was that tapped Ellman. Julian Wantling. Now, Julian Wantling ended up involved in that, didn't he? And he was the one trying to make it 3 wide up the inside. I wouldn't mind another look at from the external view of that, just to try and piece together who got into Mark Ellman. Ellman, you can see there, pulling up into his grid position. Oh, now this is Emma Tomlinson heading back to the grid, hopefully at a cautious pace, because you can see the full team of the Donington Park Marshals are out on track trying to clear it up after, I mean, the incident didn't happen down at the old hairpin, but there's that much gravel on the road from the recovering cars that it all needs to be seen to, really. Emma Tomlinson's car looks largely undamaged, so she should be able to take the restart, which will be from original grid positions, but of course minus those with damage, and I think Mike Taylor might be one of those not taking the restart. There you can see him pulling off the grid, damage to the left front corner of Taylor's car after that contact with James Nicholas, so perhaps suspension damage for him as well. He's going to limp back to the pit lane, so we'll have Luke Shaw from pole, no one alongside him, no one starting 3rd either, and Thomas Balfe from 4th. But with it being a rolling start, it may be that Balfe actually is allowed to move up into 2nd place on the grid. I'm not entirely sure. Mike Taylor, I can tell you, has just pulled up outside of my commentary box, so I can tell you out of the window he's got a broken left front wheel. The wheel looks like it's been smashed, and that will be causing a big vibration, and it could very easily lead to a puncture. The tyre actually was inflated, but he's just reversed back out of my sight into the pit lane. There is Nicholas's car. That's going to need to be loaded onto the flatbed truck. there is Taylor. It's that right front corner that needs the attention. Now, the team are in some sort of a hurry here to get the car fixed, which tells me that it might be their understanding that he's able to take the restart. They're going to look at that right front corner. They're going to gaffer tape up the bodywork, and perhaps if they've got a spare wheel there to change, they will. Emma Tomlinson pulls up onto the back row of the grid, and we will see what happens next. But this could be hopefully not too lengthy a delay. There is obviously this recovery work that needs to be done down at, well, everywhere, with gravel needing to be swept up. But once that is done, and they should have got Nicholas's car out of the way by then, we should be good to go. There is Luke Shaw then. He will start from pole position. He was one of the few drivers not involved in any of that. He made a really good start, actually got a good jump. It's all about reaction times, really, with a rolling start. It's not like a standing start where you've got to manage the clutch and the reaction times and the wheel spin and then up through the gears from a standing start. And for a rolling start, I would imagine you're probably in second gear anyway. And it is all about that initial reaction. You shouldn't get too much wheel spin from a rolling start. So Luke Shaw absolutely nailed that and led into turn one. Now, I just want to try and take another look at who gets into the back of Mark Elman. I have my suspicions, but it was right at the edge of shot. So keep an eye to Elman, the green car, fourth back on the left. He goes to the middle of the road. That is Julian Wantling peeking to the inside of him. And yeah, it is Wantling into Elman, who then billiards style goes into the side of Gamble's car, and then that really splits the pack, doesn't it, to keep the billiards references going. This is Elman's view. So he sort of feints to the middle, so that opens the door for Wantling on the right, but then Elman bails out of that. And does he turn in towards the apex? He does, really, doesn't he? I don't think he knew that Julian Wantling was there. And that, in the end, is what led to the contact. This was James Nicholas. Bang! There was the contact from Mike Taylor, which, as it turns out, has damaged both cars. Taylor at least able to limp back around to the pit lane, but James Nicholas, fortunately, having expressed his anger, arrived at the middle part of the Craner curves, and you'll see his car fifth in line. It does not turn left, heads straight on to the grass, and that won't have done the car any good either, digging into the grass like that. The front splitter now will likely need replacing, but either way, that will happen later on this evening now, because he's not going to be taking the restart. They have at least got tonight to get the cars sorted for race number 2 tomorrow morning. But for the rest of them, for the survivors, there is a race still to be done this afternoon. 18 minutes, by the way, showing on the timing screen now. So an 18-minute restart looks to be the order of the day. With a now slightly depleted grid. Shame, actually, because the grid numbers were creeping up steadily, actually, so far this season. 17 of them lining up on the grid for this one. And shame that we're not going to get all 17 of them taking the restart. Bit of attention being given to one car at the back of the grid. I think that might be Lucie Hodgson's car. Green and orange, number 44. There was a marshal doing something down the left-hand side of her car. But quite where she would have picked damage up, I'm not really sure, because she was behind all of that, but of course could easily have run over some debris or run into somebody as they slowed down, maybe. So just checking the car is A-OK. Hearing 3 minutes until the restart. So 3 minutes time, we'll get cars released onto another green flag lap, and it should, I reckon, be another 2x2 rolling start. And 18 minutes of racing the plan, because of course we've got other things to get on with this afternoon here at Donington Park. We've got the British GT Championships qualifying session. There is more Ginetta racing action later on as well. At about 5:30, the Ginetta Juniors will have their first race of the weekend. There's still marshals on the track up at Redgate, look, with brooms, still trying to clear the gravel out of the way. There is the Ginetta G56 safety car, and the field will very shortly follow that around the track once more. Drivers for now trying to keep themselves cool, trying to get as much cool-ish air into the cars as possible. There is, as you can see from the flags on the pit wall there is a bit of a breeze blowing across the circuit, but it's blowing the wrong way, really, because these cars, well, most of them are right-hand drive. Some, as you can see in the case of Thomas Balfe's car, left-hand drive. but the breeze isn't really getting into that side of the car because it's up against the pit wall and the pit buildings, so not a lot of cool air getting blown into the cars. There you can see, I guess, the wind. In fact, that's much more useful. A 4.9 km/h wind. Oh, it's just gone down to 4. So as I'm trying to make the point about there being a breeze, the weather stats proving me wrong, but it is warm. It's 17 degrees, track temperature higher than that even, and a nice day for racing, unless your name is James Nicholas, or indeed perhaps Mike Taylor, although Mike Taylor has just left the pit lane, and I'm not convinced he was supposed to. Was there a marshal there to wave him through? I don't think there was. So Mike Taylor has left the pits, presumably thinking that he can tag on at the back of the grid. I hope he doesn't think that he can join in on the second row of the grid, because I'd be surprised if that's the case, but I suppose it depends, because he was technically running at the time of the red flag, wasn't he? So, yeah, they probably will let him go back onto the second row if he gets there in time. But we might now have to wait for him to get there before we can get the restart procedure underway. Spectators watching on, though, trackside, some great vantage points around this track. That's up at the Fogarty S's. Bit of a hidden gem, actually, as far as the viewing points are concerned around this track. You really get quite close to the circuit and see the direction change as they come towards you through the S's. And some spectators are making themselves comfortable ahead of the restart of the race. So the Mike Taylor car back out on track and heads through McLean's corner. Well, that is really a tank tape special, isn't it now? That car is not quite in showroom condition, but appears to be fully functioning, so hopefully he'll be able to take the restart. And as we've seen in qualifying, he's quick, Mike Taylor. He's been quick all year, actually. I seem to recall him being a front runner right from the very start at Alton Park, but not necessarily getting the results, arguably, that he deserved. He did win a race at Alton. He won the middle race at Alton Park, did Mike Taylor, so he's third in the Rookie Class Championship coming into the weekend. And that is before dropped scores. I forget now how many races they drop. I think it's 3. It's usually 3 in a championship of this length. 21 races over the course of the season, but you tend to find that the drop scores are, if there's 3 races a weekend, then typically you drop 3 races, because that means you can miss a round and it not necessarily affect your championship hopes too much. Of course, some of the rounds, only 2 races. In fact, only the 1, only Silverstone, everywhere else at least 3. And actually, in the case of Anglesey, which comes up next, 4 races for all of the Ginetta categories, because that is the Ginetta G-Fest, the Ginetta Festival, which is coming up at Anglesey up in North Wales on the 29th and 30th of June. You'll be able to watch that live, and it should be a cracking few days of racing up there on the stunning island of Anglesey. Hoping for weather like this, because if it's not like this, it could be a fairly grim setting, but when the weather's nice, nowhere nicer to be than overlooking the Irish Sea. Right, there is Mike Taylor's car. It has rejoined the grid in third, so Taylor is going to be taking the restart from well, I suppose it is second on the grid, really, isn't it now, with no James Nicholas. But how fortunes can change. It was only, what, 15 minutes ago that I was saying this was James Nicholas's opportunity to take points out of Harry Gamble and reduce the deficit that he's got to Harry in the championship. And now all of a sudden he's out and Harry Gamble's going to be taking the restart from the third row again. So actually now it's an opportunity for Harry Gamble to extend his points margin over James Nicholas. Mike Taylor third in that Rookies Championship, but he is a further 29 points behind Nicholas. Now that does mean that if Taylor could finish anywhere inside the top 2, he would actually move back ahead, or move ahead of James Nicholas for the first time in the championship. And of course he starts net second on the grid, so there is a chance that he could do that depending on the state of that car after having been patched up by the mechanics. So the field working its way around on the green flag lap then, and yeah, time still saying 18 minutes, so slightly but not massively shortened race. They'll lose a lap basically from the race, which would have been the lap that they ran for the red flag. So here is not how the grid's going to look, but it's more or less how the grid will look. -1 or 2 of the heavy hitters. Luke Shaw will be there. We know James Nicholas won't be claiming the front row starting spot. The patched up car of Mike Taylor will start third, and Thomas Balfe will be alongside him. Then Amy Tomlinson and Harry Gamble. Be interested to see a shot of the right-hand side of Harry Gamble's car at some point, see if it did take any damage after the contact with Mark Ellman, who, again, maybe have a bit of rear-end damage, but should be taking the restart from 7th alongside Gareth Thomas. Top 10 then completed by Julian Wantling, who had his part to play in all of that as well, and Emma Tomlinson likewise should claim the restart from 10th. Then it's Jamie Cordell and Peter Tomlinson on row 6. 7th row of the grid is where you'll find Charlotte Lowe and Ali Juffali, and then at the very back, Paul Thomas, not quite at the very back actually, Paul Thomas and Lucie Tomlinson in row 8, and row 9 is where you'll find, all on her own, Lucie Hodgson in the number 44 car. Right then, let's try this again, shall we? As Luke Shaw brings them around to Melbourne Hairpin. It does look, doesn't it, like Thomas Balfe is leaving that gap in front of him, which is absolutely the right thing to do, because of course if he just pulled up alongside the pole sitter, he would essentially be moving from 4th on the grid to 2nd and jumping ahead of Mike Taylor. So Thomas Balfe doing exactly the right thing there. He may have been told by the marshals, the start line marshals, that that's what he had to do. But it means that Luke Shaw should have an uncontested run into Redgate Corner. The question is, what will happen behind? Will they all get through safely? And what will the ramifications be for the points? Let's find out then. The lights are out once again. 18 minutes starts to count down. And look for Harry Gamble, that white and black car on the outside line, to try and make some moves. Into Redgate we go. Hold your breath, everybody. Are they all going to make it through this time? It's a lot more sensible a run into the corner. One car out wide. That might have been Gamble. But they're all safely through. And they run down through Hollywood, all in one piece. On board with Mark Ellman then. He's got a view of the cars ahead as they all concertina together down the Craners. And again, Harry Gamble got delayed in all of that and might now lose a position. He's got a car on the inside of him through the old hairpin. That was the number 77 car of Gareth Thomas, but he fended Gareth off just about and retained his position, but didn't gain anything on the start there, did Harry, which I'm sure he would have been hoping to do. Oh, a lock-up for Mike Taylor. He's straight on up at McLean's. I really do think the left front corner of that car is still damaged. You can see they haven't changed the wheel, so that is a damaged rim that he's got on the left front corner. The tyre is still inflated, and the team will have checked that over to make sure that it was safe, but you have to imagine it's affected the handling of the car slightly, and maybe that was on display there. He loses positions. Balfe into 2nd position, then 3rd place now for Amy Tomlinson. Amy Tomlinson having a brilliant run. She's the leading GT Academy class driver, and again, look, Taylor locking up, and he's straight on at the chicane. There has to be damage to the left front corner. Oh, he's deposited himself in the gravel as well, and I'm not sure he's going to dig his way out of that. Thankfully, he's a long way off the road. Hopefully, no need for an interruption. We'll wait and see. There goes Harry Gamble, meanwhile, up the inside of Mark Ellman. So he's picked up a couple of places now with everything that's gone on in the second half of this opening lap. Gareth Thomason. Oh dear, that's Balfe now locking up. Gareth Thomas was banging doors with Julian Wantling, who is trying to get up the inside of Mark Ellman. Wantling does manage to get past Thomas, so it's going to be a very jumbled order at the end of the opening lap of the restarted race. Not necessarily right at the front, where it's still Thomas Balfe leading the... where it's Luke Shaw leading the way. Balfe in 2nd. Amy Tomlinson up to 3rd position. Here comes Gareth Thomas back up the inside of Julian Wantling's car. He makes that move stick nicely into Redgate Corner. Wantling tries to cut back on the exit, but can't get the overlap. So it's Shaw, Balfe, Tomlinson, Amy Tomlinson, from Gamble, the top 4. So Gamble actually came out of that first lap pretty well, despite the first part of it not going to plan, and is 4th place, but that's 3rd of the rookies. So at the moment on course to score 26 points for finishing in 3rd. Would, as I've said, extend that championship margin that he's got over James Nicholas, who will no doubt use this as one of his dropped scores. But, yeah, he is going to be an interested but frustrated bystander during this race, watching on and with the best will in the world, hoping that Harry Gamble doesn't score too many points. Through Coppice Corner goes Julian Ellman, then in 5th position, 2nd, though, within GTA. So his target in this race, if you like, is Amy Tomlinson. In fact, he's now 6th, isn't he, Ellman, because Thomas has gone through. His target is Amy Tomlinson. The trouble is now he's got Emma Tomlinson coming up behind. So Emma Tomlinson, who, again, was involved in that incident at the start of the race, bouncing back quite nicely now. She's in 8th position, but 3rd in class and about to challenge maybe for 2nd. They drop down through the Melbourne hairpin. Mark Elman there with Gareth Thomas filling his mirrors, and just ahead, that's Harry Gamble alongside Amy Tomlinson for third, I reckon. So Harry Gamble on the outside into Goddard's. He's going to go right round the outside. I think he is, you know, that's pretty committed stuff under braking. And Harry Gamble makes it stick. So Gamble into third. That didn't gain him any extra points, but it does put him one place closer towards the other two in his class. Shaw and Balfe out in front. But he is 3.8 seconds nearly off the race lead. So a bit of work to do now if he's going to challenge for a race victory, Harry. Harry Gamble has just the one class win so far this season, that coming in the third race at Alton Park, but he's been a threat in every race, and I think will be again here. And if he can come away with it from this with even a class podium, that will be quite the Houdini act, won't it, after being tapped into the gravel trap on the initial start to the race. Now Gareth Thomas, good exit from the old hairpin, pulls up alongside Mark Elman, headbutts the bollard on the inside at Starkeys, and Gareth Thomas is going to go through. Whether he did that quite within track limits, I'm not entirely sure, but Mark Elman concedes the place anyway. And Gareth Thomas, a rookie, gets past Mark Elman, not a rookie. So actually, yeah, Elman is second in class within the GTA class. This is a replay, so he gets a good run off the corner. Elman sort of leaves the door open, and it wasn't really necessary in the end for Thomas to take that much inside curve, but he obviously expected Mark Elman to close the door a bit more, and well, the bollard went flying. But anyway, wait to see what comes of that. Oh, there's a recovery going on. Straight on at the Fogarty S, it's right in the firing line, that is, isn't it? Hopefully the drivers are all adhering to the yellow flag rules. Gareth Thomas, by the way, setting the outright fastest first sector on this lap. He is flying, isn't he, Gareth Thomas, in now up into 5th position overall. Gamble is not taking chunks of time out of the lead, in fact slightly slower than Shaw and Balfe on this lap so far. Let's see what the lap times are then. Luke Shaw comes across the line. His third lap of the race is a 1:44.916. It's a 44.8 for Balfe and a 44.5 in the end for Gamble. So a really good final sector for Gamble means that he is going more quickly than the leaders. Took about 3.5 tenths out of Luke Shaw that time. So he's now 3.4 seconds off the race lead. There, meanwhile, is Caudle, number 51. Jamie Caudle on the tail of Peter Thompson in the number 6. Those two shared the 6th row of the grid. Caudle actually slightly quicker than Thompson in qualifying. Thompson also running within the Chairman's Cup element of this race. Now, the leading Chairman's Cup driver, I suspect, is still Julian Wantling. Yes, it is. Wantling in 7th position, the leading Chairman's Cup driver. Peter Thompson in 9th overall. Second in that class, but for how much longer will he be 9th overall? Because Jamie Caudle is on him as they head up the hill towards McLean's. E3 Sport driver. Not quite close enough to make a move into McLean's corner, but gets a good run out of the right-hander. He's building towards something here, I think, isn't he? So they head up through Coppice. Blind apex on the right-hander. Easy to miss that apex and drift a bit wide. This, meanwhile, the fight for 4th position now. Gareth Thomas continuing to be the fastest man on the track. He's done 2 purple sectors so far on this lap, which means quicker than anybody else, and he gets a good run out of the chicane. So he's up the inside of Tomlinson now into the Melbourne hairpin, and Gareth Thomas about to make it an all-rookie top 4. But as we've said a few times in the past in this championship, just because you're a rookie is not at all a reference to driving ability. It's simply down to driving experience, really, but very often the rookies, the younger drivers as they tend to be, are the fastest drivers on the grid in GT Academy. It's been the case on numerous occasions over the years, including last year when, okay, Nick White wasn't a rookie driver, but he did battle with Matt Shaw, who was, and they were pretty much inseparable all season long. So Shaw leads from Balfe by now 1.6 seconds, that gap up by a tenth on the previous lap, and actually Gamble in third was slower than both of them. Thomas, though, with a 43.9, the only driver in the 1 minute 43s, and that was about 4 and a bit tenths quicker than the leader. Now he's 5.8 seconds off the lead. I don't think that Gareth Thomas is going to win this race with 10 minutes to go, but he could get on the podium because he's within 2 seconds of Gamble. Monitor that gap with interest over the next few laps. Well, already, actually, Thomas purple in the first sector, 1/4 of a second faster than Gamble. So, yeah, Gareth Thomas continuing to run very, very quickly. Right on board with Mark Elman, meanwhile, in behind Amy Tomlinson. Mike Taylor, by the way, his car's been recovered from the gravel down at the chicane. So the yellow flag's back in now at that chicane at the end of the back straight, the area of the circuit that we're heading to now. Through the gears. snatching 6th gear there just for a few seconds, then braking on the crest of the hill, downhill approach into the chicane. Want to take plenty of curb through both the left and right-hand elements, but not so much that you get pinged for exceeding track limits, because obviously that can destroy your race if you start picking up penalties. Out of the hairpin comes Elman, all over the back of Amy Tomlinson now, so this is the battle for the GTA class lead, so this is of some significance. Elman peeking to the outside, not quite able to make that move work, and of course he's got to be careful because Julian Wantling is in behind. Towards Redgate they go then, Wantling actually now peeking around behind, and not for the first time, those little plastic markers on the pit lane exit get smashed by the left front corner of the cars. They really try and open up the entry into Redgate as much as they can, carry the speed through the corner, continue that momentum all the way down to the crane of curves, because you can, if you're really feeling brave, get up the inside through the old hairpin, but really Wantling deciding better of that one on that occasion. Up towards McLean's corner we go then, and Elman feeling the heat now, and as he has to start watching the mirrors, you can see he's just dropped that extra car length or so back from Amy Tomlinson. Not letting Amy off the hook by any means, but just not really able to get within striking range now because he's just a little bit distracted by what Julian Wantling's doing behind. Wantling, remember, also running in the GTA class, so this is a three-way fight for the class victory. Emma Tomlinson, who you can just see at the top of the shot, is 4th in that class. Elman's car sporting some wounds from that altercation at the start. So is Julian Wantling's. They've all got a few battle scars, a few stories to tell at the end of this one. But is Mark Elman or Julian Wantling's story going to end in victory in this race, or is Amy Tomlinson going to be able to hang on? Amy Tomlinson has not won her class yet this year. She's had a couple of podiums. That looks interesting. That's the number 7 smoking the brakes. That's Charlotte Lowe trying to get past Ali Juffali, and she might yet succeed in doing it. She's on the outside line into the Goddard's hairpin. Keeping a watching brief behind is the number 12 of Paul Thomas, but Charlotte Lowe looking to try and get that switch back, carrying the speed down the main straight. And maybe pull out to make a pass into Redgate, but actually she's slow off the corner, and so Paul Thomas gets the run on her and looks to the inside into the braking zone. I'm pretty sure that Paul's going to have a go here. He's later on the brakes, he gets into the corner. Charlotte Lowe desperately wants to try and close the door, and actually manages to come out of the corner more quickly anyway by carrying the speed round the outside. She had better momentum off the corner, so Paul Thomas frustratedly stuck behind her still. Sun glinting off the cars as they drop downhill towards the old hairpin, and Charlotte Lowe fending off that particular challenge. Back to the battle for the lead in the GTA class then, where it is still Amy Tomlinson, Mark Elman and Julian Wantling the order. At the head of the field, by the way, Tom Balfe has just set the fastest lap of the race, 1:43.7, and that was about, well, nearly 6/10 actually quicker than the race leader, Luke Shaw. And he's dropping Harry Gamble now. Harry Gamble 2.6 seconds further back. So the battle for the overall and rookie class victory could yet ignite in much the same way as the GTA class victory is doing so. Out of the chicane, good run there from Julian Wantling. He looks to the inside of Mark Elman towards the Melbourne hairpin. Is this the time to commit to the move? I think it is. And Julian Wantling, as long as he parks the car on the apex, should make second place his own. And then the leader spins. Amy Tomlinson spins, and the gates open beautifully for Mark Elman, and he manages to squeeze back into the lead of the class. Amy Tomlinson, of all the times to make a mistake, just as the two drivers behind her were starting to battle, she lost control of the car, maybe a bit distracted actually, as silly as that sounds. Maybe she was a bit distracted by the move going on behind. Oh, and there's a red flag. The red flag is coming out. So, and yeah, you can see in the top of the shot, cars in the gravel at Coppice. So the red flag is out for a second time, and I suspect that will be the end of the race with 5.5 minutes to go. Now, that means results will go back a lap, and that means that Amy Tomlinson, I think, will get away with that, because the results will go back a lap to the point at which she was still in the lead of her class. But, yeah, that was a bizarre moment there, and Amy, I do think, was a little bit distracted by the shenanigans behind her. And that was enough maybe to force the mistake. We may never know, but anyway, she is back in the pit lane. Some of the others didn't get the memo and have gone round for another lap, but I doubt we'll get a restart now because that was the second attempt to run that race. And I suspect that will be the last we see of these cars for the time being. So, cars in the pit lane. And we're hearing, there we go, that's good news. So we were waiting to hear that the drivers were okay. It's Paul Thomas and Charlotte Lowe, unfortunately, who are having that good battle. Oh my word, look at the damage to Charlotte Lowe's car. I think that's Charlotte Lowe's car anyway. And we can maybe now piece together what's happened. So Charlotte Lowe, oh, she's going to lose it, isn't she? And unfortunately, Paul Thomas with nowhere to go. Oh, that probably looked worse than it was, actually. The bodywork is designed to shed in quite a spectacular way. It's, no doubt about it, it's a big hit. You can see the right rear corner of Charlotte Lowe's car is not pointing in the right direction. But it possibly looked like a bigger hit than it was. I'm sure Charlotte and Paul felt it, but they're in the gravel trap now discussing it, so they're both okay. That is the main thing. But that's a shame. That had been a good battle, that we'd been following for a number of laps. We're hearing now officially that the race will not restart, so that is going to be a win for Luke Shaw. And for Luke, that is his first win of the year. Not the way he'd have liked to have done it, I'm sure. He was being hunted down there by Thomas Balfe, who had just set another fastest lap just before the red flags came out. So the gap was coming down, but we will never know whether Thomas would have been able to get through. And it is Luke Shaw who can claim his first victory of the season. There is Charlotte Lowe's car in the gravel, the door with the bodywork peeled away from it. But thankfully the contact happened behind the door, so the drivers themselves protected from the worst of the impact. So Luke Shaw victorious then here at Donington Park. Remember, these results go back a lap, so it doesn't affect the rookies, but it does have implications within the GTA class. Luke Shaw then the winner overall, Thomas Balfe second, Harry Gamble satisfied, I think, with third place, all things considered, and Gareth Thomas comes home in fourth, all of them rookies. Then Amy Tomlinson, despite that spin just before the red flag, which cost her the lead of the GTA class, with the results going back a lap, she re-inherits the lead and therefore the race victory, her first of the season, with Mark Elman, Julian Watling and Emma Tomlinson in tow. Then it was Peter Thompson and Jamie Cordell, with Ali Juffali 11th, Lucie Tomlinson 12th, and Lucie Hodgson 13th, whilst James Nicholas significantly, Mike Taylor also significantly, Charlotte Lowe and Paul Thomas all failed to finish. But that is a race that has definitely shuffled around the championship standings. So, drama aplenty in the Ginetta GT Academy here at Donington Park. The good news is we get to do that all over again tomorrow with a further 2 races, hopefully with a slightly smaller damage bill. Here are the highlights of our first race for the GT Academy here at Donington Park. Luke Shaw started from pole position, but behind him, it all kicked off at Redgate Corner with James Nicholas second in the Rookie Championship, getting knocked out wide by Mike Taylor, whilst his championship rival, Harry Gamble, was tapped into a spin after a pinball accident between Julian Watling and Mark Elman. For a moment, it looked like the top 2 in the Rookie Championship were both out of the race, but Gamble continued. Nicholas was still running. This was the contact that he had with Mike Taylor, bang into the side of James's car. He was not very happy with that contact, but he was about to get a whole lot less happy when he arrived at the middle part of the Craner curves, only to find that the steering had broken and his car wouldn't turn. So having already lost some time, it quickly became apparent that his race was over altogether, and his car bounced across the grass, thankfully avoiding the barriers. The red flag was thrown upon the restart. Luke Shaw did it again and managed to hold on to the lead from a quickly patched up Mike Taylor's car in second position. That car, though, was not handling well. He locked up into McLean's. Thomas Balfe came through into second place, and the impressive Amy Tomlinson, the leader of the GTA class. Mike Taylor would later retire down at the chicane, whilst Gareth Thomas was the fastest man on track for much of the middle part of the race. Here he was, taking out a bollard on his way past Mark Elman. Then within the GTA class battle, Julian Watling moved into second place ahead of Mark Elman just as Amy Tomlinson spun from the lead. It looked like she'd thrown away her race victory chances, but as that happened, a spin for Charlotte Lowe, who was then collected by Paul Thomas at Coppice, led to a red flag. The results went back a lap. It didn't affect Luke Shaw. He held on to his rookie class victory, but Amy Tomlinson re-inherited the win in the GTA class in the first race of the weekend at Donington.